How does a complete beginner start a garden? This here is my new garden. This garden is less than a year old. In fact, it was probably about this time last year that we were busy putting all the animal manure and stuff down, and it wasn't till springtime that I actually planted it up. There are lots of different ways to get started with a garden, and there's no one right way of doing it, there's no one wrong way of doing it, but I think if you're planning on starting a vegetable garden this season, or even a flower garden, to be honest, they're all started in a very similar manner. And I think if you're interested in having some food security, or even just upskilling yourself so that you know that you can grow your own food if you need to, there are some basics that you need to get right, and other than that, honestly, most of it is experimenting. This garden bed here was just a grassy hill, and there's actually 4 beds along here. And what we did was we got some of this timber here and simply pegged it in to create some terraces. And then all we have done is scraped off the grass off the top because we wanted to do it quickly. And then filled the garden beds up with a mixture of, sandfly just bit my eye, a mixture of animal manure, some compost that we'd bought, and then I topped them all off with a little bit of wood mulch that we had from an arborist that had dropped some off for us. The very first step is, if you are putting this on grass, is to kill off the grass, and there are lots of different ways of doing that. Here we scrape the grass off. I have in previous times put down like tarpaulins or black polythene to kill the grass off, and if you've got some time before it's time to get planting, that's actually, I find, the best way to do it is to put down some black polythene and just weight it down heavily around the edges. Silage tarps work really well as well, or we've actually got old billboard signs. So you just weight the edges down and put some, I don't know, bricks or tyres or stones or sandbags, whatever you happen to have, put them on top to weight it down, and then wait for at least 4 weeks. The longer you can wait, the more thorough the die-off will be. If you don't have time, that's okay too. You can get around this way of doing it by putting a couple of layers of cardboard down, or some really thick newspaper. I personally prefer cardboard boxes because they're thicker, they're really easy to get hold of. Newspaper I'm finding more and more difficult to get hold of, especially in vast quantities. And then you put down 2 layers of corrugated cardboard, and then put your compost or animal bedding or topsoil, whatever you're wanting to grow in, put that down directly on top, and you want it to be at least 10 centimetres or 4 inches thick. If you're using fresh animal bedding or fresh manure, you want to preferably let it rot down for a little while before you plant into it. The alternative to that is to put it down as your base layer, and then to put another good 4 inches of soil on top. The problem... being bitten by more sandflies. The problem with fresh animal bedding is that the nutrients are really, really high, the nitrogen's really, really high, and a lot of it is still in the ammonia form, and that can burn the roots of your plants and kill them off. I know nitrogen is considered good for leafy plants, but in too higher amounts it will kill them off. So you want to let it rest for a while, or buy some ready-made compost or well-rotted manure. Now that the sun's come out, it's really glary. I might turn around this way a wee bit. So you've killed off your grass, you've put down your compost, and now you need to get something to plant into it. If this is your first time gardening, I would recommend that you skip the seeds and go straight to transplants, or what are known as starts. And you can buy those usually at a hardware store. Some people sell them, they grow them and sell them on. The local farmers market will often have them as well. And the best option is to pick things that you know your family are going to eat. And the reality is most people that sell transplants and sell starts are selling them at the time that it's time to plant those plants, because they're probably growing plants like that themselves for their own garden. So if you buy locally, you're more likely to get the right varieties for your place. And take note of which varieties they are. Write them down. Write down when you've planted them and where you've planted them, because you'll be surprised in a couple of months' time how little you remember of what you put where. And if you take notice of the varieties that have done really well for you, then they could be the seeds you could look at starting maybe next year, maybe the year after. Don't rush into trying to start stuff with seeds. It is a whole nother learning curve, and starting with transplants or starting with starts is a lot faster. It's a lot more encouraging to see the growth, and it takes the guesswork out of what varieties are best for you and your area. The upside to buying transplants and starts is usually they have instructions on them, how far apart to plant them, what sort of soil or sun they need, and all those sorts of things. So if you're starting a garden straight up from scratch as an absolute beginner, that is definitely the way I would go. There are a few plants that are better off started from seed, peas and beans being one of those. So if you wanted to grow peas or beans, definitely by all means buy the seed for those. Potatoes and garlic, you grow from other potatoes and garlic. I have quite a playlist developing on growing different types of vegetables, so I'll link that. I can't remember what side. I'll link it up the top for you so you can have a look through and see if there's any vegetables there that you're interested in growing. See these little cauliflowers here? Believe it or not, despite me growing a lot of things, those cauliflowers are actually store-bought transplants. Now once you've got your starts in the ground, I do recommend putting around some sort of mulch. This is pea straw. You can use normal old barley straw. You can use lawn clippings. I have in the past used wood mulch as well, which works really, really well because it takes ages to break down. The upside to mulching is that it keeps the moisture in, it helps stop the birds digging, it keeps the heat off the soil and helps keep everything nice and moist, and it helps keep the weeds down. So I love to mulch around my plants. If you're starting things from seed, mulch isn't quite so helpful because it'll block the seeds from coming up. But if you're starting with transplants, putting some mulch around is a really good idea. If you're growing brassicas in the season where the white butterflies are around, or in a place where you get lots of pest pressure, which you'll find out, ask some local gardeners and they'll be able to let you know, then I recommend doing something like what we have here. This is just some, I think it's 1-inch pipe that I have just screwed onto the edge of my garden bed down here. And if you don't have garden beds, that's totally fine. You can just build yourself a little wooden frame, and once you've got a wooden frame you can attach the pipe to it, and then you can move it around the garden beds as you need it. And then I have just got this insect netting. You can buy it by the meter from most hardware stores, and some of these little clips, and some of these, whoop, I've lost it. Where'd it go? It's gone. I'm a magician. It's actually gone. Anyway, these little clip things, there are some that you can get that are branded, and I found the branded ones were like $3 or $4, $5 each, and then I found a packet of these ones, and there was a variety of sizes for, I think it was like $12 or $15. It was way cheaper, and I'm finding they're working just as well. I genuinely don't know where that clip went. So then I've just thrown this netting over, and then I'm just holding it on with these little clamps. So once you have yourself something down to stop the weeds coming through, some compost and maybe some topsoil depending on how well rotted down it is. You can even use bagged potting mix if that's what you want to do. And then you've got yourself some starts, you've put them in the ground, you've surrounded the whole area with some kind of mulch and protected them from the bugs or the birds or whatever else you need to protect them from. Then all you need to do is keep them watered and let the magic happen. I hope you found this useful. If you have, hit the like button, and we will see you in the next video.